Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 60. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Monday, Steelers Nation. This Victory Monday, Dave, just when the Pittsburgh Steelers pull you out, they pull you back in, getting a must-win victory over the Baltimore Ravens, 27-22. That's scoregami in Pittsburgh history. The first ever Steelers score 27-22, not in the NFL, but in Steelers history. But no matter the score, Pittsburgh making the plays when they counted the most, and the Steelers, as of now, in the driver's seat of the AFC North. So it was a great week of football, Dave. College football on Saturday and Friday, Steelers winning on Sunday. A whole lot to talk about on and off the field. Dave, how you doing?
All right. Happy Victory Monday to you and to the listeners. And we could very easily make this a 3.5-hour show.
We'll do our darndest to try, I'm sure.
Yeah, we got a lot to get to. Back on top of the AFC North with 4 games remaining. The Steelers, obviously, next game will be Monday night at home against the Miami Dolphins. And boy, can they sure use that extra rest now coming out of this Ravens-Steelers game. So without further ado, I think as we usually do on Mondays, we get to the housekeeping portion of the section, and that's going to be a little lengthy in and of itself. And that, of course, is brought to the listeners by our great friends at touringplans.com. So tell the folks about Lynn Testa and touringplans.com. Alex?
Well, before we do that, as we usually do, give me your 30,000-foot view, the quick climb up the mountain of this win. Because on paper, in a lot of respects, Pittsburgh, quote-unquote, should not have won this game, had fewer yards, fewer plays, more penalties, et cetera, et cetera. So how did Pittsburgh find a way to win when most, and maybe ourselves included, kind of counted them out of having this kind of outcome?
You make a couple, the Steelers made a couple more plays when it counted, and they won the explosive play battle technically 5-4, and they won the turnover battle 1-0. And had they not won both of those categories by 1 each, they probably lose that game. But you play to win the game, and even though they were outsnapped once again by a considerable amount when it comes to plays run. And look, I mean, how long have we talked about explosive plays and this Steelers offense and having to find a way to push the football down the field? They did that. They did that right from the start in this game. I thought Aaron Rodgers was fantastic. Not probably.
Best game of the year?
I think it was his best game of the year. I think he was in control of everything, and then he had help on the back end with his receivers making plays for him as well. But this was an Aaron Rodgers game, and that played a big part in the Steelers' victory there. So, and once again, you win the explosive play battle by 1. You win the turnover battle by 1. And, obviously we'll get into this couple of late situations, big play. I told you that there would be some sort of play that we're talking about that helped the Steelers to victory. It wasn't kind of the play that I had envisioned in my head, but obviously there's one play everybody's talking about coming out of this game, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. But that's really my 30,000-foot view of this game.
And that is the Isaiah Likely, was it a touchdown, not a touchdown play? Is that what you're referring to, I assume? So, yeah, we'll certainly discuss that one. A lot of controversy in this game, but Pittsburgh made the plays, and I think those moments like Porter's breakup were emblematic of why Pittsburgh won. They had the strain, they had the finish, they had the effort to win this one. They finished the game strong. They maybe in some respects were outplayed in the second half, but not by a significant margin, so they're able to kind of close out games they have not been able to with another halftime lead that was nearly blown with Pittsburgh holding on, making those plays, and that was, I think, a difference in this one. Guys really putting their hand in the pile, hurt, injured, different roles. Metcalf as a gunner, Queen injured, Porter straining, all those kind of plays were needed in this one. And then offensively, as you said, the vertical pass game, first play of the game, 52 yards of DK Metcalf, Pittsburgh getting more downfield completions in this game. They probably did the entire month of November. And so that was certainly a catalyst for why Pittsburgh's offense got going on a day where there was no run game. They had to throw the ball and throw it. They did. So as you said, Dave, our housekeeping portion is going to be a long segment today before we dive into it all. It is sponsored, as always, by our friends at touringplans.com for our Monday housekeeping. So if you're planning a trip to Disney, any of the Disney attractions, Disney World, Disneyland, Disney Cruise Line, anything Disney related, have them as your co-pilot to get ready and prepare for your trip, and then enjoy your trip to the happiest places on earth. Though pretty happy for Steeler fans on Monday, so they can help you on ticket, how to save money on tickets, restaurant reviews, line times, all the kind of nuances and details of having a fun and solid trip to any of those Disney excursions. Check out the site, touringplans.com. As you said, Len Testa spearheads it all, and he's a big-time Steelers fan who I'm sure was as excited as anybody about the win on Sunday. Okay, Dave, so buckle up here for all the minutia of the housekeeping from an inactive standpoint. You had Will Howard, Derek Harmon, Calvin Anderson, Kyle Duggar, Broderick Martin-Rhodes, Roman Wilson, and Keyshawn Williams were your inactives. Harmon, Anderson, Duggar out due to injury. Roman Wilson, a healthy scratch. That was certainly a surprising move there. He did not dress to make way for the veteran receivers to dress. Marquez Valdes-Scantling was elevated on Saturday along with offensive tackle Dylan Cook, who had to make his debut after Andrus Peat left with a concussion. Adam Thielen also dressing and playing a fair amount of snaps in this game. From a health standpoint, multiple players concussed in this game on Pittsburgh's end. Darnell Washington, Malik Harrison, Andrus Peat, all with concussions. Their status will be evaluated throughout the week. The extra day, as you said, Monday's game against Miami will help them get cleared, but certainly no guarantee. Queen battled an leg injury of some sort. He finished it out. He gutted it out. Benton turned his ankle, rolled into by Y.A. Black, second snap of the game. He finished things out. DK Metcalf left it all on the field, and then apparently this news came out Monday morning. They're on the team plane getting ready to fly back from Baltimore to Pittsburgh. Metcalf experiences some severe stomach pains. They pull Metcalf off the plane, send him to a Baltimore hospital for further evaluation. He spends the night at a Baltimore hotel. Reportedly, according to NFL Network, will fly back to Pittsburgh today. Status a little iffy for Monday, but the fact he's flying back would suggest that the hospital cleared him, so we'll certainly check on that status. But that is the latest development on DK Metcalf spending part of Sunday's win in the hospital in Baltimore.
Yeah, and I think the only thing to add on to that, Ben Skowronek, some sort of hand or finger?
DK called it a finger.
Finger,
okay.
Okay.
But he finished the game, right? There was
Right.
no... I don't even think Tomlin mentioned him post-game.
Right. And yeah, a bunch of guys went down with concussions, started dropping. It seemed like multiple, almost right in a row. We were constantly, and I think Eccles left a little bit, but came back as well too, right?
Yeah, guys were coming in and out. I think Eccles was checked for maybe a concussion too, but he finished things out. And so those were the three concussions that we know in Washington. Harrison, which looked super scary on a tackle on Derrick Henry. Luckily, he walked off the field under his own power, so that was good news. And then Peat going down too. Should also mention, I don't think we knew this by the Friday morning show, Dante Kent, the rookie cornerback who's on IR, out for the season with a knee injury, suffered his first practice back, and so he will try to get back for 2026.
All right. Definitely we have a long list, and be interesting to hear Mike Tomlin talk on Tuesday and go through the health of the team. And I noted on Twitter, and it's an obvious thing. Good thing the Steelers play on Monday night instead of Sunday. That gives them an extra day to kind of heal up, and we'll see how some of these guys get through, whether or not they can get through the concussion protocol.
As for the inactives, a lot of moving and shaking there. Martin-Rhodes inactive after dressing last week. Logan Lee getting the hat. And I was wondering if Lee would kind of get a last chance to prove himself. He picked up some, fairly decent snaps in terms of snap count in this game. The big news, though, is the receiver shakeups. You had Thielen, Valdes-Scantling, Scotty Miller, all active. Roman Wilson, Keyshawn Williams inactive in this game. Keyshawn Williams is not a surprise. The role was pretty limited as a part-time kick returner. That was about it. Roman Wilson, though, was certainly the notable name. I think Pittsburgh just wanted to shake things up as much as they could. Dress guys that hadn't been dressing. Somebody had to go. Calvin Austin had to do punts, and so Roman kind of became odd man out. I still have a hard time understanding why Roman got the nod over Scotty Miller, or Scotty Miller got the nod over Roman Wilson. Wilson's been getting open. The numbers may not show it, but he had been productive. But I think Pittsburgh wanted a veteran, a different approach for hopefully different results. And of course, even though those three receivers, Thielen, Valdes-Scantling, Miller really did not make any plays, Pittsburgh got different results from its passing game.
First and foremost, I'd like to thank Mike Tomlin for reading my Twitter feed and trying to follow along with some of those changes there. I'm kidding, obviously, but I did speak earlier in the week on Twitter and on the podcast that my hope was to have both Thielen and Marquez Valdes-Scantling in uniform for this game. I didn't think it would cost Roman Wilson his helmet, so that was a little bit of a surprise there. But Mike Tomlin was asked before the game by Tracy Wolfson of CBS Sports, talking about Adam Thielen and MVS potentially playing on Sunday. And he says, just to surround ourselves with some more veteran players, the road's getting narrow for us and everyone, and there's no substitute for experience. And hopefully it's the difference today. So when you talk about veteran players and no substitute for experience, you have guys like Marquez Valdes-Scantling, obviously Adam Thielen, and even Scotty Miller. Scotty Miller's played a lot of games in the NFL, and that's plain and simple. That's why Mike Tomlin went that way, and he wanted more experienced guys out there. I wonder how much of a role Aaron Rodgers had, or how much of a role Aaron Rodgers' input had in this. He speaks highly of Roman Wilson, but in the same aspect, you do kind of wonder about the two being on the same page at times, and it felt like the tone overall from Mike Tomlin is as stated. He wanted veteran players in there because there's no substitute for experience. Now, obviously, this is a negative thing when you look at Roman Wilson. This is obviously his second NFL season. Obviously missed the time during his rookie season and all. You got a third round draft pick invested in him. Is this look into the crystal ball the way this thing might go the rest of the season? It's quite possible. I think it will come down to a Scotty Miller, Roman Wilson type decision here. But Mike Tomlin he shook things up and he threw the mud up against the wall here, and that mud ended up being older style mud.
Yeah, I mean, I get the point in principle. I certainly have no problem with Thielen dressing and Valdes-Scantling being elevated. If anything, the MVS elevation was overdue and probably could have happened 2-3 weeks ago instead of the month long it basically took for him to get an opportunity in this game. Just had the one target, a late third down throw slant that was, I think Rodgers might have expected something different in terms of the coverage or the route, and Thielen caught one pass for, I think, 4 yards in this game. But Scotty over Roman was certainly interesting from a snap count perspective. The new receivers, Thielen 25 snaps, MVS 16, and Scotty Miller, not a new receiver, but getting the hat, had 3 snaps on offense and 1 on special teams. So we'll see what that looks like going forward. All right, Dave, let's go into this game. Pittsburgh winning this one 27-22, 7-6 on the season. Now in the driver's seat of the AFC North as Baltimore falls to 6-7. The Bengals lose to Buffalo, so they're already faint. Playoff hopes are almost zero at this point. Again, Pittsburgh on paper may have been outplayed, fewer first downs, fewer yards, outrushed by 183 yards, had more penalties, et cetera, but Pittsburgh making those weighty plays and those big-time moments. Let's start, though, with the offense, and as you said, getting the vertical pass game going. Aaron Rodgers throwing for a season-high 284 yards. DK Metcalf, a season-high 148 yards receiving, 52 of those coming on the very first play of the game. A great ball, great route, and great finish by Rodgers finding Metcalf down the right sideline. The run game was not there. The short pass game had to substitute in. Pittsburgh making those plays, and that was the story. That was the difference. Been waiting for this offense to do something different, to be a little less limited in terms of where it can attack. They stretched Baltimore vertically. They had to get some of those big plays. You can't go 12-play drives and be perfect against Baltimore's great defense for an entire game. You had to get some chunk and flip fields, and Pittsburgh did so.
Absolutely, they did. And one of the key stats coming out of this game, Aaron Rodgers was 4 for 4 on passes that had air yards of 20 yards or longer past the line of scrimmage. So that's, I think, a starting point when it comes to this offense. And overall, his average, let's see if I can pull this up real quick here. Aaron Rodgers had an average intended air yard distance of 6.53 yards past the line of scrimmage, and he had an average completed air yard distance of 5.83 yards. So almost 6 yards and almost kind of double double what we've seen this team have as far as completed air yard distance for a good chunk of the season. Aaron Rodgers' average or adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat in this game was 8.94. That's his second highest NEA stat for the season. It's second behind the game against Cleveland, which was 9.17. He was not sacked in this game, just as was the case in the game against the Browns. He was not intercepted, although we have one of those to a play that could have been, that we'll talk about here in a little bit. And, through one touchdown pass on top of it. And, I just think overall, we saw Aaron do a great job avoiding a couple of sacks and turning those into positive plays mostly. And yeah, look, I thought he was really in control of this offense. I thought they had a good game plan, at least of what they wanted to do in the passing game and pushing the football down the field. It is disappointing that they couldn't get any element really of the run game going. But the difference in this game was was those explosive plays, 5 in total. I guess 6 if you include the one where it was the face mask tacked on to, I think it was a Gainwell catch and all like that. But that made a huge impact because you're moving the football down the field in chunks, and we need to see more of this moving forward if this team is A, going to make the playoffs, and B, going to win a playoff game as well. So you have to talk about the offense and the explosiveness of the offense through the passing game as a key component of this game, which helped propel this team to victory.
And Rodgers, I would say, looked healthier. He wore the soft brace or soft cushion on his injured wrist instead of the hard cast he had been wearing previously against Buffalo. He looked more comfortable in the pocket, just felt a little more in tune with the receivers. The scramble drills were better. One to Skoranek that you posted on Twitter, the one to Metcalf. The line did a great job giving him time, but you've seen Rodgers be a little more frenetic outside the design and structure and intent of the play, where he would drop his eyes and kind of duck. He didn't do that in this game. He felt a lot more calm, in control, and like I said, in sync with all of his receivers, none more so than, of course, DK Metcalf, but then finding, Kenneth Gainwell in the flat, touchdown to Jaylen Warren, beating the blitz on a busted coverage by Baltimore. It felt like a different feeling in this past game than you've had, not just in the obvious in terms of the downfield plays, but Rodgers being in more command, in more sync. He talked about having a great week of practice and really guys dialed in and focused. And you certainly felt like he had an offense that was paying more attention to details in this game than they have been in many games this season.
Yeah, he threw for 284 yards, and that was a season high for him as well. The offensive line, I thought, played well, and we talked about, especially with Jonas on the Friday show, that we kind of highlighted, that Ravens pass rush has really been hurting them a lot of the season here. So that their inability to get a substantial, Rodgers only faced 20% pressure rate in this game, and I think that is the fifth lowest pressure percentage he's faced all season, and the lowest pressure percentage since I think the game against the Colts,
Oh, wow.
as well, which goes back a few weeks, obviously, as well. So there were, several component, but this just goes back to how much you talk. I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole here, but Andrus Peat went down, and Dylan Cook had to come in. And Dylan Cook's been around the league for quite a while, but those were his first NFL snaps, were they not? And
Yep.
after all this time, and at left tackle, and mostly when you think of Dylan Cook, you've kind of thought of him as more right side guy than left side, even though he has, I think taken snaps at left tackle in preseason games and all like that. But it's a good thing they had that guy kind of ready to go and be versatile at either tackle spot there. And even the first snap of the game was just Aaron Rodgers. That's why you go out and get a guy like Aaron Rodgers. He moves. Who was it? Uh, Gainwell, I think, up to the line to help chip on that play. And then what do you get as a result of that? You get a deep shot attempt down the left side to Calvin Austin, one-on-one. And could you have got that done without helping Chip Cook? Well, who knows? But at least you fortify that up, and for a guy first NFL snap, probably shaking in his boots there, and knowing what the potential play call might be on that, you give the guy help. So props to Aaron Rodgers on that, and that was obviously a key passing explosive play in the game there. So this was an Aaron. When you talk about offense, this was a Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf game overall, and then obviously you got contributions from a few other wide receivers in this game.
Your stars had to be stars, and in many ways they were, especially offensively in terms of your biggest names making the big plays and the big time moments and big time games. Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf and company. Aaron Rodgers, 0 sacks, only hit once, according to the ESPN box score. So that really shows how well Pittsburgh protected him on a night where typically you can't run the ball. It's harder to protect, obviously, but Pittsburgh did a really good job up front, even though, as you said, that Ravens pass rush has struggled throughout the season. Obvious as it is, 0 turnovers in this game. You won a turnover battle, 1-0 in this game, and that was critical. I mentioned that Baltimore came into this game with the NFL's second longest takeaway streak, with at least 1 takeaway defensively in 7 straight games. That now ends, and so you talk about winning this game, you talk about the margins, you talk about 3rd down, 4th down, talk about special teams, talk about turnover differential, talk about red zone play, and a lot of those aspects. Pittsburgh won this. So while some of the box score numbers of total yards and first downs and plays went in Baltimore's favor, the more I think, numbers that determine the game in terms of the real nitty gritty, the red zone play and turnover differential went in Pittsburgh's favor, and that's why the Steelers won.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I don't understand the defensive game plan from the Ravens. I think they were so focused maybe on trying to shut down a run, and being complacent in the fact that the Steeler offense has not pushed the football down the field, and that Aaron Rodgers for a good chunk of the season had gotten the ball out quick. Maybe they kind of took that for granted. DK Metcalf talked after the game about not seeing a lot of safety help over the top, and we saw a lot of just middle of the field safety type situations for Baltimore, and they took advantage, especially right out of the chute, and went deep, and the Ravens really never kind of seemingly, and I haven't gone through the all 22 yet, but they were fine with Aaron Rodgers, maybe trying to take his shots during the game, that they wanted to try to protect more against a shorter passing game there. So that played a part into this. And look, you can only play what you're faced with, and the Steelers took advantage of the defensive scheme that the Ravens and we said that's a good secondary, right? I mean, they've
Sure.
got some players in that secondary there, and certainly dwarfs their up front pass rush and all. And you have a situation here where their Russian coverage didn't play hand in hand, right? Because of that. So, look, we just I You're not going to fool me here, all right? No, nobody's going to fool me here. But I definitely would like to see more of this moving forward, and we need to see more of this moving forward over the course of the 4 remaining games here to give us any confidence whatsoever that this team, A, can either make the playoffs, and B, if they do make the playoffs, potentially win a game or two in the playoffs.
Yeah, one game does not make a season, and there's still a month to go, and you have a tough challenge on Monday against a team in Miami that's surging and playing good football, so that is certainly no guarantee or layup or anything close to it. And you still can and should have a lot of the same critiques from Mike Tomlin that you had before this game. This is a very Steelers thing to do, is to win the game that nobody thought they could win. But the one thing you can never accuse Mike Tomlin of is losing the locker room. I mean, he's never done it once in 19 years. He's always kept the tone and the pulse and the team together and playing for him. And they fought hard. They worked their butts off in this game, whether it's old heads that know this rivalry inside and out, like, Cam Hayward, or newcomers making an impact, whether that's the rookie like Y.A. Black or the veterans in Metcalf and Rodgers and Ramsey, etc., getting their first taste of Steelers and Ravens. And so this team played hard with great effort and strain throughout the entire game, and that proved to be the difference.
Yeah. Now, look, this was, if you want to talk about things that this offense can improve on coming out of this game, you start obviously with the run game. There was not much of a running game at all to speak of. So thank goodness they were able to push the football down the field. This was a 3-quarter offensive performance. And why do I say that? This team had the ball obviously in the fourth quarter. 3 of their possessions, their final 3 came in the fourth quarter. They had the ball for 9 plays. 9. What was that? Ferris? Uh,
Didn't see it.
9.
Never seen it.
You never seen Ferris Bueller's Day
Never.
Off? Oh,
It's shame on me, I know.
I quit. I'm quitting.
All right, just the Alex show now. I'll take over.
Yeah, 9 plays in the fourth quarter, and they gained 3 net yards. And these are situations where you have an opportunity to really put the game away, And they for the most part seemingly took the air out of the football and couldn't connect when they did throw the football, and that was a little bit disturbing there, how they closed this game out on offense, considering that up until that point, they had moved the football pretty regularly down the field there. So if there is a negatives to talk about, it's why couldn't a running game get any kind of traction whatsoever, especially with their ability to push the football down the field. And then second, the way they played in the fourth quarter, they're going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, and having three net yards is something they have to improve on.
I normally have very low expectations for Pittsburgh's run game when facing Baltimore. I think it says more about the Ravens' run defense than Pittsburgh's lack of rushing attack, but it is notable. 34 yards rushing for Pittsburgh in this game, the fewest they've ever recorded in a game in which they beat the Baltimore Ravens. So to do so with such a limited kind of one-dimensional type of offense. Now there was some, obviously short pass game kind of run substitute stuff. Gainwell, 6 catches, 27 yards. So, Frymuth, I think, caught an RPO or 2, stealing a quick out. So, those things kind of take its place, and Pittsburgh has run those things more often and generally more effectively. Aaron Rodgers, though, a rushing touchdown, the oldest Steeler to ever score a rushing touchdown in franchise history. Now, granted, he does a lot of the oldest things ever because he's the oldest player ever to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But that was a play that was not supposed to be a Rodgers rushing touchdown, but he made it work, and that was a great fake to get Baltimore fooled and showed the wheels. He talked about post-game that he felt great waking up. He says in your 40s, sometimes you wake up feeling great, sometimes you wake up feeling good, and there's really no rhyme or reason. The difference of how you feel, I'm sure, Dave, you can relate to that. But Rodgers, he turned back the clock in this one in more ways than one.
I think Troy Falatano joked after the game saying that Aaron Rodgers may have touched 16 miles per hour.
Do we have an actual miles per hour on that?
I don't know.
I can have something on him.
I don't know if they do, but I know for a fact Seth was it Walder? I know he'll get that to me, so I will effort that by the Wednesday show.
Here's a fun stat of the weird for you. Aaron Rodgers had a rushing touchdown against Baltimore before Lamar Jackson's first ever rushing touchdown against Pittsburgh. Jackson's score end of the first half was the first ever rushing score, which completely shocked me. I would have assumed he had one. Just, I know he's not played in a ton of games. He's missed some time against Pittsburgh, but that's kind of a crazy stat there. So both quarterbacks are rushing score, but Rodgers getting his before Jackson got his against the Steelers. And then Kenneth Gainwell had a rushing touchdown too off that. I think the more controversial play is not the likely touchdown, but that personal foul call on Travis Jones on the Chris Boswell field goal on Christian Kuntz. It looked clean to me, but it gave Pittsburgh a fresh set of downs, and they capitalized off that Gainwell touchdown.
Yeah, let's shelve that all those kind of penalty and play controversial play talk for a little bit later as we go over the pool report there. But it goes without saying that the Aaron Rodgers, I guess you call it a reception, right? Instead of an interception was a key thing on offense there. I was going to throw this out at some point during the show. Could you make any kind of argument that Kenneth Gainwell should get votes to be team MVP 14 weeks into the season?
I haven't thought about MVP, and we're still, again, I wait for all the hay to be in the barn, but he's certainly had a role to play, and he's certainly been an asset in a lot of ways. In that short passing game, I think he's run the ball, at least since that Minnesota game, has kind of been running the ball well when given the opportunity to just 4 carries, but 15 yards and a touchdown in this one. So he's certainly been a really valuable player in terms of getting Pittsburgh out of a lot of situations. Throw the screen, throw the check down, throw the swing pass to Gainwell. You need this guy to do basically anything. Run the ball, pass protect, catch the ball, run down kicks. Like, the guy does it all. So I don't know if that reaches to the quite level of MVP, but it certainly is a really good niche role player. It's kind of like he's the best sixth man in football off the bench, just kind of playing that role and doing whatever needs to be done to help you win.
And really, up until this point, it's a low bar to clear when you're talking about MVP. Most people will throw out Chris Boswell with good reason up until this point here. So I'm just every time it seems like you need a big play, Kenneth Gainwell certainly comes through with it there. Other negatives, I guess you could say about this offense: 6 of 14 on third down. Now, once again, we talk about the final 3 third downs of the game that the Steelers faced on offense. They did not convert. So up until that point, they were 6 of 11, right? So for 3 quarters, they were pretty decent on third down overall. They were 1 for 1 on fourth down. I believe that was the tush push, was it not?
With Connor.
To Connor Hayward. So great decision, great call. Obviously, when you convert on fourth down in short yardage situations and you decide to go for it, it's always a great call in those situations. 2 for 4 in the red zone could have potentially been a key stat in this game. Overall, you'd obviously like to see them finish at least maybe one more drive in this game to have a 75% rating in the red zone, but two out of 4 ended up being good enough according to the scoreboard there. And goal to go situations, they were 2 of 3 for 67%. Yeah, and once again, not Aaron Rodgers not sacked. A couple of those being with his ability to extend plays and avoid the rush. So good on him there. And the rushing yards, that's I'm interested to climb deeper into the all 22 to see why they couldn't get anything going there.
I think Pittsburgh, and obviously these two teams know each other so well, there's really no big surprises, even though some of the names will change in terms of the players, the coaches, Tomlin, Harbaugh. But Pittsburgh does a good job, I think, combating some of those real aggressive blitz looks. Remember when Kenny Pickett hit George Pickens on that game-winning touchdown a couple years ago on an all-out blitz by Baltimore? Mike Tomlin said post-game Baltimore was going to burn the house down there and go all out and play basically cover 0, and Pittsburgh beat them. You had the Warren touchdown in this one, which granted there was a miscommunication. Baltimore was supposed to have somebody dropping out, but you beat the blitz. Rodgers did a good job recognizing it. You had 2 guys wide open. Frymuth could have scored. Warren could have scored. Warren was the closer target, so he got the football. But yeah, I think Pittsburgh has always had a good feel for how these games go. Baltimore's personality, because Baltimore's defense, like Pittsburgh's, It does not change, even though the DCs can change from go back to, Rex Ryan to Wink Martindale to Mike McDonald to Zach Orr, the current DC. The Ravens defense is their defense, and I think Pittsburgh knows how to combat that, especially in those pressure look moments.
Other aspects of this offense, you'd like to see Calvin Austin secure that catch on the third down along the sideline there in this game and move the chains. And I think Aaron was kind of vocal a couple times. Get the next damn play in, so teams won't have a chance to challenge some of those questionable, catches or outcomes of plays and all like that. So.
They did a better job of that on that Metcalf sideline catch that had some question to it. They got up to the line and got that play off. And then Austin did a toe, and that was a great 31-yard reception. He's not. I don't think he's a great route runner in terms of the middle portions of the route, but his release package is still really good. And he got off the line. I don't know corner he beat on that play, if that was Humphrey or Wiggins or somebody else, maybe a Wouzier, but that was a great play by Austin to kind of get a splash play in there for the offense too.
Yeah, and that was, once again, as we talked about, that was the first snap in the game for Dylan Cook.
Oh, yeah, that was the 3rd and 5. Yeah, I forgot exactly the context of that play. So, Austin, his longest catch of the season. Metcalf, his most yards of the season. Rodgers, his most yards of the season. So your passing game, which has been completely invisible for far too many weeks, you had to rely on it in this one because there was no run game. There was not going to be a run game to ride you to victory. You had to go through the air, and Pittsburgh did.
Yep, they did.
Defensively, again, on paper, some of the stats might not look appetizing, especially the 217 rushing yards allowed. That's back-to-back 200-plus yard performances on the ground against Pittsburgh, which is not where you want to be, but the defense made those situational plays. The numbers that stick out to me, obviously, the takeaway, the overall containment of Lamar Jackson, even though he's not the runner that he once was because of the injuries he's been battling this year, but 2 of 6 in the red zone. I mean, you hold these teams to field goals, you take points off the board in these close games. It always come down to the final minutes. If they score one more time in the red zone, it's a completely different game. Baltimore probably wins this one some way or another. And so that situational football was massive.
Yeah, they didn't have much of an answer for Zay Flowers in this one, but they did keep Mark Andrews and really the tight ends in general fairly well in check. Mark Andrews, 1 catch for 9 yards. I think you hit on a good point there in bowing up in the red zone, and the rushing yards. Man, it did feel like at different points in this game, the Ravens were running downhill with Henry, and when Mitchell broke off that 55-yard run of his, man, props to James Pierre because that very well could have, if you're not giving 110% effort on that, that could have very well ended up in the end zone on that particular play. Now, they did end up scoring on even on that drive, right?
Yes, they still put that ball in the end zone, but on principle, Pierre showed great heart.
Right, and not only that, Mitchell never returned after that. Right, he was injured.
True, knee injury,
and that ended up. I mean, that, as we talked about, this is a great 1-2 punch with Henry and Mitchell because Henry obviously loves to get the runway and slam it in between the tackles, and Mitchell is a guy that you can use out on the edge and out in space and in the passing game as well too. So even though the drive ended up in a touchdown after James Pierre made that tackle, the fact that he knocked Mitchell out of the game, we'll never know what kind of residual kind of impact maybe that had on the game as well too there. So and then we're gonna have to hit the elephant in the room at some point. The finish by Joey Porter Jr. on that play to Likely in the end zone, if you don't make that effort, that's easily a touchdown. But the fact that you did make that play, brought that or reached and knocked that ball out, brought the play into question. So that obviously was a big play in this game. And like it or not, the 4th down and 2 that followed, there were a couple. The Ravens left some plays out on the field, and that obviously happens with both teams throughout any usually NFL game. There, they had a key drop by Bateman in this game, And then that 4th and 2 that Queen is covering Andrews across the middle of the field, we don't have the reverse end zone angle of that, but Brian Baldinger already has it out there. That ball seems to be maybe intended for Hopkins in the back of the end zone, and he's wide open there. It's easy to think that that ball was not intended for Andrews. It was intended for Hopkins in the back of the end zone there, and had Andrews not gotten a finger, on it, that's maybe a touchdown there. So sometimes, it helps to be lucky, to be lucky more than good sometimes. And, I think in a couple instances there, the Steelers were lucky. So,
but I think you create your own luck. When you do
sure.
things like Porter, when Queen comes off the mat and goes in there and makes a play, I think you make your own luck in a way.
And definitely with the Porter situation there. And that effort, caused the ball to get knocked out, and then caused the whole entire play to be called into question there. So with that, shall we get in? And look, the running game once again, Henry, they held him to like 30-something rushing yards in the first half, so they did a good job there.
Can I just say, maybe this is my rose, black and gold colored rose tinted glasses. Like, the run defense was not good, but it did not feel as bad as the Buffalo game or as bad as the last 2 games against the Ravens last year. I mean, there were certainly a lot of issues in this game, but Henry didn't kill you the way that he killed you in the past. I think the run defense was a little bit better, crazy as it may sound, than the 17 yards they allowed in this game.
Well, look, 74 of those rushing yards came off of 2 runs, the 55 by Mitchell and the 19 in the second half by Derrick Henry, when it looked like they were maybe going to get him to start running down, on a tilted field there. So, I mean, but you just can't cherry pick these out, though, either. And
Yeah,
say,
I'm not taking those away, but it wasn't like this constant surge that was just like they are dominating up front over and over and over again. There were a couple moments like that, but I think Pittsburgh was able to bring it back from the brink enough in this game.
right. And, Lamar Jackson had 43 of those yards on the ground as well, too. And he's going to get, assuming he's healthy enough to do so, he's going to pick up at least 25 to 30 yards on the ground in any given game. So, 43 of those rushing yards came out of him.
If you had told me pregame that I could either take the stat line of Derrick Henry, 94 yards, 3.8 yards per carry with a long of 19, I'm taking that from what he's done to Pittsburgh in the past.
Touchdowns.
And no touchdowns, I'm going to sign up for that. So was the run defense problematic? Yeah, you can't allow Mitchell to get out there. Henry had the one on a power run. He finds the kind of backside gap that he hits there. Lamar, Queen has to contain that. He rushes in. He's the spy and probably gambled too much there, and Jackson broke free. So there were problems for sure. And man, I can't wait. And I really hope Derek Carman gets back as soon as Monday night. But to me, this was not quite as bad against the run as the numbers may show on paper.
And it's a good thing they did not mesh charge in this one either. We talked about that on Friday. I was thinking maybe they should try to hit Lamar Jackson a few times on a few of those mesh charge. There was probably 3 or 4 plays in this game where you saw the outside linebackers crashing down, backside making plays. T.J. Watt on a couple of them. I think Highsmith, 1 or 2 of them as well too. So they did create some negativity in that run game as well.
Yeah, Lamar got his. He had a couple of read options in this one. He was running more because this is a game where you had to win, so you're kind of pressing more than probably Lamar would have otherwise because you have to pull out all the stops. But I think the focus was a lot on Henry in this game, as it should be. And I thought, generally speaking, Pittsburgh didn't miss a ton of tackles. They do have to still do a better job getting off of blocks, but again, you can't keep allowing 200 yards rushing. This is unacceptable for Pittsburgh, but it didn't feel as bad as it may appear to those just looking at a box score.
I don't know if this game goes the other way and they score that late touchdown. Does result help back up the narrative in that though?
Yeah, I'm sure it colors it to some degree, but I still think I don't come away feeling the amount of dread that I did after the Baltimore games last year, especially the wild card game, obviously, where the team just looked completely worn down and completely waving the white flag, or even the Buffalo game where it felt like Pittsburgh just could not stop it despite trying everything in your playbook, in your schematic wheelhouse to stop it. Pittsburgh still could not stop it. So again, I'm not feeling great about the run defense, but I'm not feeling quite the anguish I felt last week or last wildcard game.
All right, let's leave the discussion at this. There's room for improvement in the run defense still.
Sure, absolutely. All right, Dave, let's pick up the discussion on some of the controversial calls in this one. The Aaron Rodgers, is it an interception or a reception? The Isaiah Likely, is it a touchdown or an incompletion? And then I think less forgettable, but maybe just as important, is the personal foul on Travis Jones on that Chris Boswell field goal. Let's start though with the Likely touchdown, no touchdown. Porter popping it out, initially ruled a touchdown, went to review. Officials say that Likely did not get that third step down, and so it was ruled incomplete. Baltimore eventually throws incomplete on fourth down later in that drive, comes away with 0 points. Right call, wrong call on the Likely touchdown, no touchdown.
All right, I'll take you through my thoughts in real time as watching that and watching the replay. Right when it happened live, I thought that's a touchdown. After the first several replays of it, I thought it was a touchdown because it was only week 9 or week 8 against Green Bay where we saw kind of a similar type situation with Roman Wilson against the Packers. And that was ruled a touchdown there. I was surprised that they reversed that from a touchdown. Now, Mark Butterworth, they had a pool report after the game. Jeff Zerbiak of the Baltimore Sun, I believe, was in charge of talking to instant replay official Mark Butterworth and referee Alex Moore. And the question was, what went into the decision to reverse the touchdown that was initially ruled on the field for Isaiah Likely in the fourth quarter. Mark Butterworth said the ruling on the field was a touchdown. We quickly looked at the play. The receiver controlled the ball in the air, had his right foot down, then his left foot down. The control is the first aspect of the catch. The second aspect is 2 feet or a body part in bounds, which he did have. Then the third step is an act common to the game, and before he could get the third foot down, the ball was ripped out. Therefore, it was an incomplete pass. The follow-up question to that was, so an act common to the game, what would that constitute in the end zone? It was 2.5 steps before the third step down. That's a question. What would constitute an act common to the game? Butterworth said for this play, it would be him completing the third step. So the follow-up to that was, so he needed the third step in the end zone in this situation, and Butterworth said, yes, sir.
I think it makes sense. Now, I had the inverse of you. When I watched it live, I thought for a second when I saw the ball first come out, okay, is that a touchdown? And then I just saw the overall reactions from everybody, Porter himself, that they just feel like, okay, that's a touchdown. Like no one was really arguing. And I think it was really just maybe Porter a little bit. And then Asazio Tomewa were the only two people maybe defending the initial thought of no touchdown. This was an incomplete pass. And so I went from this is not a touchdown to I guess it is a touchdown because no one seems to really be disagreeing heavily otherwise. And then the replay, I think, showed it well. So I think it's the right call. It's certainly close, and there's always a big debate about what is and is not a catch. But the NFL always talks about getting that third step or that kind of 2 steps. And then, as you said, that act common to the game, which is kind of some other movement, often the third step that shows true possession. But man, I just give Porter so much credit in the world for not giving up on that play. I mean, he's fighting, he's punching the arm. It's so tough when Likely a big guy, big tight end, boxes you out, his arm's extended away. He's punching the arm, which is just great technique. And so I think back to DB's coach, Jared Alexander, really harping on Porter's technique to become a better player. And when the penalties in this game earlier were still following Porter, man, you just showed really good heart and effort and strain and technique too to make that play, which I think really kind of sums up how you won this game, not just from being bigger, stronger, faster, more yards, but making those big time plays, never giving up. And I think Pittsburgh's defense showed that throughout that game. None more important, none bigger than that Porter play.
Right. I understand the rule, and I'm fine with it after the fact, but in the heat of the moment there, and even after the first couple of replays, I thought that was a touchdown. Now, I did go back and rewatch the Roman Wilson one. It did seem like he had the extra step in there. So if not two, in that situation there.
And you're talking about the Packers touchdown, Roman Wilson play, because there's a question like, okay, how is that play different than the likely touchdown or no touchdown?
Right.
Okay. The other one, the Rodgers reception interception, I still think this is the right call too. It's a very weird, quirky play, but I see Rodgers with the ball in his hands and his knee down. Now, the difference here, because some will say, how is likely not a touchdown and Rodgers a completion? Well, when your knee is down, you have possession of the football and you're contacted, you're down, and you don't need an extra step.
That's an uncommon act, right?
It's just down by contact.
Right.
You have possession of the ball. You don't need to have 2 knees down or 3 steps or any sort of other possession beyond possession of the football in your grasp and knee down and contacted. That is down by contact. And so that to me is the difference between those two plays. And again, I give Rodgers a ton of credit. Like, you're going in the belly of the beast there to rip that ball out on one good wrist with the other one still injured. And you got 4 different Ravens on top of you trying to rip the ball out. You go to the ground and you're just getting piled on. Man, I think it also shows a lot of heart from Rodgers on that play to just go do whatever it takes to try to get that football.
All right, I'll take you through my live feelings on that in real time. At first, I thought in real time it was an interception, but the first time that they showed the angle of the replay with his knee down with the ball in his hands, I thought, yeah, that's they're going to overturn that. So I quickly, once I saw the first replay, thought, oh yeah, that's not an interception there. So I think they got that one right as well too. And they were asked the reversal on the interception. It looked like they both kind of came down with that deflection. What went into the reversal? Butterworth said the offensive player had control of the ball, and as he was going to the ground, there was a hand in there, but he never lost control of the ball, and then his knees hit the ground in control. So therefore, by rule, he is down by contact with control of the ball. And the follow-up question was, so even with mutual possession or both of them grabbing on it, the quarterback has the ball and the knee down. And Butterworth said the offense had initial control of the ball and ended up being down by contact. And that's all they had to say in the poll report about that.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Now, watching it live, I had no opinion because I didn't know what was going on. You couldn't see jack, and so I didn't know who had the football. I couldn't tell you anything about my live reaction. But once I saw the replay, I thought, yeah, that's either simultaneous possession that goes to the offense, or Rodgers has enough total control that he has the ball and down by contact, and that was the right call.
Right.
Now, the one I think they got wrong, and I really haven't gone back and watched it super closely since, was the penalty, the unsportsmanlike conduct, or the personal foul, I should say, on the Chris Boswell field goal that I guess they called. I don't know if there was this in the poll report. I didn't get a chance to really read through every single question there in terms of what they called Baltimore for exactly on that penalty.
I think it was for unnecessary roughness, was it not? Let me see if I can.
This was not in the poll report, though, I'm guessing.
No, it was
Okay.
in the Jones was called for unnecessary roughness on the play. And for the poll report, let me read it off to you there. The question was, I'm trying to get an idea for the explanation behind the 15-yard Travis Jones unnecessary roughness call, and I was hoping you could take me through it from your perspective. And Alex Moore, the referee, answered this question. He says the snapper by rule is a defenseless player, so the contact would be unnecessary. Basically, he ran him over. Follow-up question, but he was heading towards the left guard. Does it matter who he contacts first? Alex Moore says it does not necessarily matter who is contacted first. The snapper is still by rule a defenseless player. Follow-up question. You can't contact him at all when you're rushing a field goal. More. the referee said, you cannot make any forcible contact to that player. The calling official felt like the contact rose to the level of being unnecessary against a defenseless player. You look at the replays on this, and I do think they got this one wrong.
I just went back and watched it one more time for myself. Yeah, that play happens every single field goal rush. A number of times the Kuntz has fallen down like that before because he's gotten kind of hit to the side and then run over. It happens almost every single time, essentially. Anytime there's kind of any sort of rush into the A gap. So to me, this is not, because usually the rule is, usually when this is called, there's contact to the head or neck area, which is a total off limits. If it's any sort of beyond a grazing of that, that is a penalty every day, all day, because he is defenseless, like you and the ref said. But to me, that's rushing the A gap. There's no intent of trying to run over Christian Kuntz. That's incidental and just the cost of doing business. And so I think the NFL or the official on that play really botched that one.
I do as well, too.
So that certainly was to Pittsburgh's benefit. So I think of the three controversial plays, I think they got two of them correctly. The Travis Jones one incorrect, which is the one that's being talked about the least because the special teams, and no one really likes talking about special teams penalties. But I think that's the most egregious mistake that the refs made.
And then obviously the Steelers turned what would have been 3 points into 7.
Yeah, that was the Kenneth Gainwell touchdown. So certainly a big time moment. And so I think there's definitely a gripe to be had on that one. But that happens. Baltimore certainly can't use that as the reason why they lost this game. They have a lot of other reasons. They were in this game until the end. So that's the breaks.
Yep. And look, Steeler fans would be just as furious as Ravens fans are on a couple of these plays had it gone the other way.
Sure, absolutely. I get it. I get the frustration for it, but you still had a chance to win this game. You're 6-7 for a reason. You play a lot of bad football. Don't lose to the Bengals on Thanksgiving. Don't turn the ball over. Lamar Jackson interception. There's a million places you can look at and say, that Baltimore could have controlled, that they did not do a good job of the drops. Man, what is it about Baltimore's receivers and just terrible drops against Pittsburgh? That has happened so often. Remember Zay Flowers, 2 years ago, I think, had some horrible ones, and Bateman on third down or whatever it was in this game, wide open, probably a touchdown if he just catches in a crosser that's 5 yards away from him.
Derrick Henry out in the flat there had a lot. Yeah,
it's a forgettable play.
That could have been a huge play had he caught and taken off downhill with that one.
Yeah, because I think Wilson came in on the blitz and didn't see Henry pop out. Now, the Baltimore, what was the result of that drive? Did they cut? I think they had a field goal in that drive. What was the result? Do we remember
which
the
one?
Outcome? The Henry drop. What was the outcome of that drive? I think Baltimore still got points on that drive, if not a touchdown. But I think it might have been a field goal.
I don't know right off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't have that, but that certainly was a big play that did not happen. So the interception by Pierre, that is the perfect defensive play by Pittsburgh. They did everything right on that play. They covered the initial reads. They contained Lamar Jackson, Y.A. Black, and then Peyton Wilson charging in late, and then Pierre still playing coverage. It is hard to do all those three things on a given play. Take away the initial read, contain Lamar, and cover it downfield. Usually you kind of get maybe two of those three if you're having a good rep. And that took away the football there in a big-time play by James Pierre. But that was, to me, maybe the best defensive moment collectively Pittsburgh had in this game in terms of execution at a really high level.
Because he's kind of out there in a no man's land, right?
Yeah, and he kills you in that way because you don't know, do I cover him? Do I sit back? Should I let him run? Do I blitz him? You never know exactly. There's no answer of exactly how to play it in that exact moment. Everything's just kind of on the fly, ad-libbed. And so collectively, everyone doing their job, Pierre still covering, Black hustling, Wilson coming in to force the throw. That is just A+ across the board.
All right, that Derrick Henry pass incomplete short left came at didn't it come at 4:17 in the fourth? A 1st and 10 from the Steelers 48. Does that sound correct?
I thought it was earlier than that, but I'd have to pull it up. You certainly could be right. I don't have a good recollection.
Let me double check real quick. 4:17. I've got it pulled up here real quick. I'll tell you. It says no videos for this play. Man, Let me reload it real quick, see if I can get it to come up
I'm
here.
pulling up the play right now. Nope, you're right. You're right.
All right.
I think you're right.
Oh, hold on.
There's a couple incompletions, I think, to Henry in this game.
I'm talking about 417. I think it was. Let's see if this comes up here. All right, I've got it pulled up here. I'm watching it real quick here to see.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. That was it. That was it right there. That drive ended with no points.
Okay, so that ended up being that might be my forgotten play that helped Pittsburgh beat Baltimore, even though that was really an own goal by Baltimore.
And that was one of the ones. Let's see what happened after that. Derrick Henry, 2 yards on second down. Jackson to Zay Flowers for the 33-yard after that. And then the reversal of the likely play. Yeah, that couple plays after that is when the reversal to likely happened.
Right. So, and then the fourth down incompletion that Queen covered Andrews on that might have had Hopkins in the back of the end zone, as you said earlier.
Right. So they I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of insequential because the reversal to likely came after that, and then they had a chance on 4th and 5 from the 8 on the throw to Andrews. That if Andrews does not touch that goes to I think Hopkins in the back of the end zone.
Right, they still move the ball, but you never know. Henry in space, does he score on that play? Does he get downfield? You never know, as you like to say in the space-time continuum, how all that changes from there on out. But yeah, Baltimore not making the plays.
All right.
Let's see, Dave. Special teams in this one. I thought Waitman had a good bounce-back game. The kick coverage unit was awesome. Carson Bruner's been fantastic. 3 tackles. He ran over somebody on one of those tackles, and so I thought he did a really good job. But you have to talk about the team effort, the strain. Man, DK Metcalf as a gunner on that punt with just over 2 minutes to go, the game on the line, the division on the line, the season in so many ways on the line, and he just takes, I'm taking the gunner rep. I don't even know how that ends up happening, but he goes on the field, draws a double team. There was a holding call that wasn't on the guys blocking Metcalf. It was the guys blocking Skoranek, but it just kind of shows the type of dude that DK Metcalf is. Like, I'll do whatever it takes to go out here and win. I don't care what it is. And so on a day where he's making all the plays through the air to kind of do the dirty work, and I'll take a gunner rep because nobody else is doing it, and we got Skoranek hurt, and let me just go do what I got to do. I mean, that's just really cool, Dave.
All right, so Skoranek ended up on that same punt?
Yeah, even though Metcalf went in with the intent to replace Skoranek with the finger injury, Skoranek went out there too, which speaks a lot about Ben Skoranek and his mentality of like, I'm going to be just a dude and go out there and put it all on the line and do what it takes to win this game. So it was Skoranek out there on the other side. But Metcalf just still showing kind of the player and the teammate and how selfless he is to do what it takes to win.
And didn't they use both Scotty Miller and Eccles summon gunner in this one or no?
Yeah, I got to go back and chart it. I know Eccles got some work out there. I think Scotty did too. They've had all those guys kind of mix and match throughout the season. You know, Pierre's done a lot of it. And then once he became a starting corner, he's come off of that unit. So they've really had, Roman's done it a couple times this year as a gunner, obviously inactive in this game. But I mean, just to the point, Metcalf is just a dude. I mean, that's just stuff you don't see a starting receiver go out there and I'm going to go take the rep and have a good rep too. And I thought the coverage on that play, not even just from Metcalf, but Kuntz as the snapper, and then Wilson down there. I mean, that was, and then the holding call. That's a 63-yard net punt. That is true field flipping type of stuff there. And you needed all that because Baltimore drove down the field, got to Pittsburgh's 30. So field position mattered. The kick return game for Pittsburgh still kind of stunk. Gainwell had one good return out past around on the 40-yard line, but I thought the kick coverage teams, the punt coverage team, the punt team, Waitman himself was excellent in this game.
Yeah, Waitman, nice bounce back game. Had to see it from him. Punted 4 times for a 49.3 average with a long of 53 and had one inside the 20.
And just to wrap a bow on the point, like this is what it takes to win these Steelers-Ravens games. Sometimes it's as much about your number one receiver having 52-yard receptions in big plays downfield as it is your number one receiver playing gunner and in a moment's notice just going down there and giving you a good rep because you need it in a big-time type of moment. So this was a team effort, whether you talk about Queen strain, Porter strain, Pierre's effort, even though it still resulted in a touchdown for Baltimore. Like you said, the Mitchell injury ended up being maybe a big factor in this one. Metcalf, Dylan Cook making his debut on 3rd and 5 in Baltimore in a must-win game. Like, just that kind of stuff. Big and small, star player, backup, thrust into action, answering the call. Pittsburgh answered the call in every respect in this one, and that's how you win these tight, physical, divisional games.
And this was a hard-hitting game, and Mike Tomlin had this team up for this game, period.
Right. They were locked in. They were dialed in. They played some good football in this one. They shook off last week's terrible loss in the Bears game. They avoided that dreaded 3-game losing streak, which they've done for 7 straight seasons now. Still could happen later in the year. That streak's not been officially snapped, but if Pittsburgh can win one of these final couple of games here, they probably will do so. So, yeah, like I said earlier, Tomlin has never lost this locker room. So for all his warts, and you can still have a lot of criticisms, you could still want Mike Tomlin fired. That's fine. That's your opinion. But you can't say he's ever lost that group. He's always kept that group together and fighting hard, and Sunday showed it again.
All right, the Steelers are now 7-6. They have a 1-game lead over Baltimore in the division. They also currently obviously own the head-to-head against Baltimore. I think technically if the Steelers beat Baltimore and beat Cleveland, they win the division, right?
I hadn't mapped it out, but I would assume so. If you have 2 more wins and you sweep the Ravens would have to have a better record to win the division, and I don't think there's runway to do that. I haven't done the math of it all, but that sure sounds right. I mean, beating Baltimore a second time is going to make it very tough for Baltimore to win the division. They, of course, would have to have a better overall record, which they could do, but they got a tough schedule against New England and Green Bay and the Bengals. Well, they play the Bengals, I think, next week. So.
Well, wait a minute here. If the Steelers' only 2 wins are against Cleveland and Baltimore, that would make them 9-8 on the season.
Right. But Baltimore can't get more than 9 wins because they would have an 8th loss by losing to Pittsburgh.
That's again. Right. That's right.
So it'd be 9-8, Pittsburgh as tiebreaker.
Right. That's correct.
So we'll see. I mean, I think the odds are like 70% Pittsburgh to win the division, but we know this thing is not over yet. And it's certainly plausible where you're playing week 18 for all the marbles, where it's true, not even just division, but there's basically no wild card path for either team. We've laid that out for a couple weeks now. This is 4 seed or bust. And so this could truly be week 18. Winner gets the 4 seed, wins a division, loser goes home. Like, that is a very plausible scenario.
Mm-hmm. That we could get into that game being flexed and being
yes.
That game could, I mean, I know there's already several candidates for it, but that could be game, what is it, 242 or 2, I don't know what the last game of the season is term, but there is a chance we that could be for all the marbles. Winner in, loser goes home.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why week 18 is always to be determined when the schedule comes out in terms of when it'll be and the day and time, because the NFL will take it up to the last second to figure all that out. But I think there's a good chance you're going to see a primetime game between Pittsburgh and Baltimore at Acrisure week 18.
They control their own destiny. We all control our own destiny, but they control their own destiny here.
Yeah, I mean, last regular season meeting, Pittsburgh had the chance to win the division. They lost that game and obviously lost to AFC North by season's end. They did not win the division yesterday, but they took a big step forward to doing so. So now you got to stack. Now you got to keep, you got to roll this thing through. You can't be this inconsistent team that beats Baltimore one week and then loses to Miami at home the next. It certainly will not be an easy or a gimme team by any stretch, but you got to get a win streak going here. Got to get hot late in the season.
And Baltimore, look, it's no easy path for them. They turn around and play the Bengals again in week 15. Then they play the Patriots, the Packers, and then obviously close out against the Steelers. So,
and 3 of those 4 are on the road, at Cincy, at Lambeau, at Pittsburgh. So like that is a tough schedule just in itself to play 3 of your final 4 on the road.
And we all know New England's still going to probably be battling for the number 1 seed in week 16, right?
Yeah, it's not going to be over by then. And so, Baltimore, not to make this Ravens depot, but man, they blew a great chance. They had a 3-game homestand. They only went 1-2, beating the Jets, losing to the Bengals, and losing to Pittsburgh on extended rest at that yesterday. So, I mean, that's a big missed opportunity. You got to go at least 2-1 there on that 3-game homestand. I think they're 3-5 at home for the season or whatever the number is. And then 3 of their final 4 on the road against tough teams, 2 of them divisional, 1 of them out of conference at Green Bay. And then your one home game is against the Patriots. Yeah, that is, we'll see. They certainly could win it. They could do well, but that's tough.
Hey, how great would it be if this is a big hypothetical, if the Steelers win their next 2 against Miami and Detroit, and Baltimore loses their next 2, and then you have no ground to gain from the 4th seed potentially at that point, you could end up resting Aaron Rodgers.
That's true. That's true.
For the final 2 games, and you might be able to mix in you might
Get a
be
little Will Howard in
with
there.
a little Will Howard in there somewhere, maybe
funny.
in the game against Cleveland there. That's out there, but I'm not saying. I'm just saying what a difference a week can make, right? with this box of chocolate Pittsburgh Steelers team of 2025. And look, I've been on record, been critical of Aaron Rodgers and saying, man, if this is Aaron Rodgers that is what he is going into this game against Baltimore, I don't want to see any more of it. But here's the thing. They learn from what you did well in this game against Baltimore, and that means personnel as well. It's hard to imagine Thielen and MVS don't get helmets going forward, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. I still want to see Roman get out there. I think you still have Roman dress over Scotty, and that's
All
how you
right,
kind of
that's
shape
fine.
this thing up. Yeah, and I think MVS and Thielen dressing is probably more than fine, but we'll kind of let injuries and how the year takes you. What I hope Pittsburgh takes away, maybe above all else, besides just kind of some confidence and belief, which I'm sure they had, but it's good to be reaffirmed by beating Baltimore, is open up this offense, get the vertical pass game going. Like you showed, if we're aggressive, we take some shots. Got to be smart about it. You can't just go out there every single time and do it whenever you want to. It's got to be the right moments, obviously, but this offense has to open up. You have to get this vertical pass game. When you do that, man, good things come on the other side. And so hopefully Pittsburgh can kind of learn and take that lesson and say, let's keep at it. Let's kind of keep chipping away and get more of those big plays, because Pittsburgh's been missing that for such a long time. They hit those repeatedly against Baltimore and they come away with a big win. They are rewarded for that aggression.
And with the inconsistency back and forth with this running game, you've got to have, this offense has to have those chunks, and they have to have those chunks not necessarily by the yards after the catch.
Just when you're facing,
something that we've talked about all season with this offense, the explosive plays, they have been so reliant on yards after the catch.
Yeah, when you're facing good offenses, the Dolphins can score, the Lions certainly can score. You're not going to win by throwing 5-yard throws into the flat, against, you're not going to win a playoff game throwing RPOs the entire game. There's going to be a chance where you have to take some big plays down the field, and you got a lot of speed, and you got guys who can win vertically in Austin and Metcalf, and hopefully MVS can make some plays. That's certainly been his calling card throughout his career, is winning vertically downfield. And so, that's what's going to be required going forward.
All right. I think we whipped this game up pretty good here. We'll get into the all 22 over the next 24, 48 hours and reveal what else pops out to us during the Wednesday show. But wait, there's more.
Well, just one more note from this game, not to end it on a sour note. You can kind of laugh about these things more in victories than defeats, but I swear every throw from Aaron Rodgers to Jonnu Smith is cursed. Like, there's just some sort of voodoo doll out there. You had Jonnu Smith on the play before the Rodgers reception controversy, just wide open, and Rodgers the ball comes out of his hand weird, and the ball skips to Jonnu Smith. I don't know what it is, but every single attempt target for Jonnu Smith is some sort of weird adventure of how in the world did that weird play happen. So they just cannot connect.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, Dave, as you teased in the Wait, There's More, some news came out Saturday. Love these Saturday stories from Adam Schefter. Just funny how these things come out timing-wise about Mike Tomlin's future. Obviously, pre-Ravens game, the whole storyline was about Tomlin's future. Would he be back in 2026? Calls for his firing by the fan base. Adam Schefter said Steelers will not fire Mike Tomlin, but the interesting wrinkle in his contract is there is a team option for the 2027 season on Mike Tomlin's contract that must be decided upon by March 1st, either picked up or declined, and presumably only one man has that decision, and that is Art Rooney II. And so Tomlin's, will be under contract for 2026. That's not going to change, but to extend it out as a second year of that extension he signed back in, I think, 2024. That is a team option for the Steelers and Rooney to decide.
And then also the report states that Mike Tomlin has a no trade clause, right?
Yeah, which we kind of figured. And the one good point that Florio makes about coach trades is that basically every coach has a de facto no trade clause. You can't just trade a coach the way that you trade a player. But yeah, certainly with the trade rumors and whispers and speculation in Chicago calling Pittsburgh last year about Tomlin, that is important to note.
Right. March 1st is the evidently the official date there. They're going to make that decision long before then, right? And here's the thing. You got the All-Star games at the end of February, you got the combine that I believe the last days of the combine coincide with the March 1st date. Obviously, a couple of weeks after that March 1st date is the start of the new league year and free agency and all. So this team will have made it. And look, you just, you know, even if you told Mike Tomlin 1 week after the season, we're not going to pick up your option for 2027, you run into the whole, and I think this is something that you've kind of hit on, you run into the whole lame duck situation, and how does that impact free agency? And, guys making decisions. Well, I don't know if I'm going to sign with the Steelers because Mike Tomlin might not be there after the 2026 season. They will make this decision on Mike Tomlin's future early in the offseason. I think going back to some of the other conversations that we've had, that's kind of been your thought as well too. You can't let this thing linger because you got to get a new head coach in there. Do you really want to send a coach that you're potentially going to fire down to the All-Star games and to the combine? You need to make a decision on what you're going to do for Mike Tomlin, and not only in 2026, right after the season. And if you're going to keep him, I agree with kind of some of the things that Mike Florio laid out. This thing's headed towards them picking up Mike Tomlin's 2027 option. And then if he gets off to a bad 2026 and that comes on the heels of for some reason this team not making the playoffs or being one and done in the playoffs this year, then you can always work around, a compensation, a split, firing, whatever, in the 2026 season or even after the 2026 season. So if you're listening to this, and look, Adam Schefter's been real vocal on this, saying they're not going to fire Mike Tomlin after this season. If that's the way you're hoping this thing goes, then you better start hoping that the Steelers go 0-4 in these last 4 games. They look pitiful. They missed the playoffs, and that's probably the only hope, I think, for those that would like Mike Tomlin gone, for Mike Tomlin to be gone after the 2026 season.
I'm not sure if there's extreme urgency on Rooney's part to make that decision on Tomlin's contract right after the season. This is before free agency, and so you can make it late February.
I'm talking before the All-Star games.
But why? There's no real benefit. It doesn't change the calculation of anyone if Tomlin has the option picked up before or after he goes down to Mobile, right? What does that change?
Yeah. I suppose, yeah, but I mean, I feel like you'd want all that put to bed.
I mean, the thing is, Rooney, of course, will be asked about this every which way during his post-season media circuit. He takes the week, he goes on every local station, he talks to the media, he kind of gives the State of the Union address about the Steelers.
And he's not going to talk about his contract even if asked about it anyway.
He's not going to sit there and say, I'm going to pick it up or not. At least I don't think. He's not going to say, I'm going to decline it. If he says anything, he'll say that we're going to exercise it and we trust and stand by Mike Tomlin. But he'll get asked about it. And so that'll be an interesting discussion to kind of get the perspective on how Rooney is publicly framing the situation. I think you can wait until February, whatever, to pick it up or at least decide upon it. You could do it earlier, but I don't see the rush that you have to do it now. But to the broader point, I've maintained for a while now. I wrote that article a couple 3, 4, 5 weeks ago about Tomlin trade stuff, and I think that's always kind of silly, but the interesting discussion was less about this offseason, this upcoming one about Tomlin's future, but the offseason after that, because the contract, as we knew it then, was through 2027, and would Tomlin get another extension if the results don't change? If you don't win a playoff game this year or next year, how do you give this guy an extension? Because usually these deals are done a year out, a year before the contract ends. So you're not in that lame duck status, which is very rare for a head coach to be in the last year of his contract. Most often, those contracts get extended a year out, so free agents feel comfortable signing multi-year deals without the worry of, is my head coach on the hot seat? Is he going to be fired? Am I going to be playing for a new head coach in just a couple of years? Now, Mike McCarthy was a lame duck coach last year. Jerry Jones went into that year on a contract year. McCarthy did not return. Schottenheimer replaces him. I just have a hard time believing that option will be declined on Tomlin and put him in true lame duck status. It's so hard for a highly paid, highly respected coach to be put in that situation, and then all the bad things to come with that. Now, I don't know how aggressive Pittsburgh plans to be in free agency. I imagine maybe a little bit less so than they were this year, so maybe that would impact things less in terms of the free agents you bring in, but I still expect the option to be picked up. Now, you could still pick it up and then go through 2026, and if the season doesn't go the way that you want to, then you can still have that decision on Tomlin after 2026 in terms of, do we part ways? Do we kind of end the Tomlin era? And I've always thought the 2 years from now made more sense than this year, in the sense of Tomlin will have his 20th year in Pittsburgh. It's the end of Cam Hayward's career in all likelihood. Aaron Rodgers, if he comes back, will certainly be done after 2026. That, to me, is the cleaner break. Tomlin will hold the record for most wins by a Steelers head coach. He'll either pass Noel this year or more likely next year. And so, all those reasons make sense that if we talk about Tomlin and the Steelers parting, it's after 2026, not after 2025. I think this option situation just kind of reinforces that point.
Okay, what do you say about the narrative floating around on the social media about these things leak out timing-wise for a reason, and so, ahead of such a crucial game and coming off of the week after the Buffalo loss and the fire Tomlin and all the narrative about and every talking head show and us on the podcast and everything discussing Mike Tomlin's future past 2025, and how it's probably not a coincidence that all this stuff, quote unquote, leaks out right before what's a must-win, non-must-win game, if you will.
Sure. Yeah, I'll sound like Aaron Rodgers. I don't believe in coincidences in this respect, so I'm sure that was intentional. But is the theory that Tomlin's camp is sending this message out? And if so, okay, how is this helping take the heat off of Mike Tomlin? I mean, the win, it takes the heat off, but if they lost that game or if they flame out the rest of the way, the calls would just be to decline the option. And if anything, it's kind of easier for Rudy to have that out to decline the option rather than just not extend Tomlin. So I don't know really in what way this benefits Mike Tomlin by having this story out there.
What if it was, and this is speculatory, what if the Steelers were the ones to be the source of this rising to what it did on Saturday?
I mean, again, I don't how does this benefit anyone? The calculation does not change. If the Steelers can't win a playoff game, the calls will be move on from Tomlin. We need a new fresh face in there. This can be the same old, same old. So I don't know how this story changes that. Either the team will win a playoff game, get over the hump, and it'll be pretty much accepted. Okay, bring Tomlin back. It's fine. Or it's same old, stagnant Steelers. Get rid of him, make a change. And I don't know how that media perception is changed by this news of the team option in 2027. If anything, again, if the Steelers don't win a playoff game, or if they don't win the division, or whatever the case is, the calls will be even louder of, Rooney, you can't exercise that option on Mike Tomlin's contract. You have to decline it. And again, if that's Tomlin's camp leaking that, or even if it's the Steelers front office leaking that, I don't know how that's serving anyone well.
And what if this was just Adam Schefter and just digging deeper for the timeliness, because he pretty much, that was the newswire Saturday for the most part, right? How much is this just an insider digging deeper into some of his sources and finding somebody that knew the status of Mike Tomlin's contract in 2027 having the option year included?
I mean, I get that, and it certainly became the topic of the week. So you would imagine that Schefter insiders would do more digging throughout the week. But I still feel like somebody leaked that with some sort of intent behind it. It's not a coincidence that got leaked out during this week right before kickoff. But I'm just having a hard time understanding the motivation or the motive or the benefit from anybody from leaking that information. Again, to me, the calculation does not change. If this team goes 9-8 and they get bounced in the wild card game, fire Tomlin, move on. The calls are not going to change no matter what.
All right, knowing what we all think, I like to use the old knowing what we think that we all know and what we don't know at this point in time. Will Mike Tomlin be the Steelers head coach in 2026?
Yes, I'm pretty confident in saying that unless Tomlin were to come in and step down, which I don't have the belief that he will. I've kind of maintained that for a while. Again, I think the more interesting discussion is not about will he be here in 2026, but will he be here in 2027? Where if you go through 2025, you get bounced in the playoffs, you don't win a game. You go through 2026, you do it again. Even if you pick up the option in 2027, you would still be, in theory, extending Tomlin out at that point before 2027 to not enter 2027 as a lame duck. But you just can't give Tomlin another extension if you go 2 more years of the same old, same old. So I think the decision date is not about this upcoming offseason, but next offseason, off the 2026 season, more so than it ever is about what's going to happen come January.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with just everything you said. What would it take at this point right now knowing that they beat the Ravens, and if the Steelers were to go 0-4 in their final 4 games and not make the playoffs, does that change anything in your thoughts?
Not really. I think he's going to come back pretty much regardless, unless he either loses the locker room where there's a complete implosion and the team entirely turns on him, or he decides to walk away. And I don't think he's going to be in that mindset. But if Tomlin goes, my thought would be, this is how it'll go. You go through the season. The season is the season. The Steelers pick up his option in 2027. You go through the entire 2026 season. If it doesn't go well, there's still no progress by the organization, by the franchise. They go 9-8. They lose in the playoffs. They don't make the playoffs, whatever the case is. Then you sit there and say, you're entering the contract year in 2027. Rooney goes, I can't extend this guy, but I can't put him in lame duck status either. And so we're going to part ways at that point. And again, Tomlin does 20 years. Hayward's done. Rodgers is done. Watt's older. Ramsey's older. Tomlin has the record for most wins by a Steelers coach. You've done everything that you can do. You make the break. Then after 2026 is going to be the calculation. That I'm pretty confident in saying that.
By the way, if Mike Tomlin wins the final 4 games, he will pass Chuck Noll on the Steelers head coach win list. There's just wanted to throw that out there. And if the Steelers were to lose to the Dolphins on Monday night and Baltimore beats Cincinnati this next week, Steelers would still technically be in the division lead because of the head-to-head win over Baltimore. I guess what I'm getting at here is it should be, unless Baltimore collapses, every game should be a meaningful game for Mike Tomlin in these final 4 games, right?
Well, as you said, in theory, if Baltimore collapses, then is Week 18 relevant for Pittsburgh because they're going to have the 4 seed locked up if they've clinched the division without really probably any upward mobility at that point. So Week 18 could be a little bit dicey, but let's assume that game means something because I still think it's going to mean probably all the marbles for the AFC North.
I suppose the Steelers could still improve their seeding depending on what Jacksonville or whoever's going to win the AFC South. They are 2 games behind Jacksonville right now, but Jacksonville has the Jets, Colts, and Titans as 3 of their 4 remaining games there. So barring a collapse by the Colts, it feels like 4 seed or nothing for the Steelers. So yeah, you very well could get in a situation where the only way that the final 1 or 2 games are meaningless for the Steelers would be if Baltimore collapses, or B, if the Steelers were to lose their next 2 and Baltimore win their next 2.
The question would be, if you go into Week 18 and Pittsburgh has a 1-win advantage over the Ravens. Would a Ravens win give them tiebreaker? What would be the common game situation between those two sides? And we don't know what that's going to look like, obviously, yet, because the Ravens still have to play some common opponents in the Patriots and the Bengals and the Packers, 3 teams Pittsburgh has played this year. But that would be a question about, let's say the Pittsburgh is at, what it would be, 9-7, and Baltimore is at, what, 8-7? No, I'm getting my 8-8. They would be at Baltimore, hypothetically. Would a win for Baltimore get them tiebreaker, or would Pittsburgh still own tiebreaker even if they lost to Baltimore? We just don't know that, but that could also be a storyline for Week 18.
Well, they would have to win. Baltimore would have to win 2 of their 4 remaining games, or 2 of their 3 remaining before the Steelers at that point. So what would that do? Because all 3 of them would be common games.
Mm-hmm. I'm not going to calculate.
All right.
I can't calculate common games right now. I don't know.
Too much math, huh?
Yeah, public math here on the fly. No, people would just be falling asleep at that point. But something to watch there. So going back to Tomlin again, I think 2026 he's back. I think the offseason after 2026, going into 2027, will be the most interesting one on Tomlin's future. And if there is a parting of the ways, do you try a trade? Rare as it is, you would give, Tomlin has no trade clause, so it'd be something where, like, go shop around, go interview, basically make you a de facto free agent, go figure out what team you want to go to, and we're going to trade you there to him, or do you just part ways? They probably just part ways at that point, just out of respect, instead of doing this trade dance, which is difficult and messy and takes longer for your team to then go find a head coach if you're the Steelers. But I've maintained for a while now, and I'll continue to maintain it. He's back in 2026, 2027. Going into that year is going to be the decider on Mike Tomlin.
All right. So what you're saying is everybody should save their money and not spend it on billboards, and they should save their voice Monday night against the Dolphins, right?
I mean, you can spend your money however you want to. You want to go yell and chant and fire and billboards? Hey, more power to you. I'm just telling you what I think this path is going to end up looking like.
And if the Steelers get into the playoffs and win at least one playoff game, everything,
then it's all
everything goes away, right?
Right. But again, if the Steelers, let's say the situation is essentially the same. We're 2025, 2026. They're 9-8. They're competitive. They don't get over the hump. If you're Rooney and you pick up the option for 2027, which I imagine he will, you can't give that guy another extension that makes him, the highest paid coach in football, essentially, based off the last decade of nothing.
Agreed.
So then what do? Do you put him in lame duck status for 27? You could try. I don't think Tomlin wants to be in that position. No coach wants to be in that position. But that's where you sit there and say, okay, let's go our separate ways.
All right. I think we have beat this up pretty damn good this morning.
All right, Dave, any other thoughts? I think we kind of aired it all out well. If not, we got some reader emails we can get to and close out today's show.
All right, let's get to a few here. We will start with Justin Babcock, AFC North tiebreaker. Been listening since I was in high school over 13 years ago. Boy, we've had people grow up with us. Let's see, after some playing around with the ESPN playoff simulator, I believe the Ravens-Bengals matchup this week is a huge game for tie-breaking purposes. Can you guys go into more depth about this? Also, I'm sure you guys will hit on this, but what did they do differently this week to get DK going? Bonus question if you want. How will they run the ball if Darnell misses a game? Oh boy, we got 3 interesting questions there. All right, the tie-breaking in division between 2 teams goes obviously best record, then it goes division head-to-head matchup with the team that you're tied with, and then it goes is it common?
Is divisional games next, or is it common games next?
Hold on here.
I might have been getting something wrong about my comment earlier on tiebreaker.
Hold on. 2 teams division.
Yeah, it's head-to-head, and then division, and then common games.
All right, 2 clubs. Let's see. To break a tie within a division, 2 clubs head-to-head. Obviously, best 1-loss tie percentage in games played within the division, and then best won-loss tie percentage in common games, and then after that, best won-loss tie percentage in games played within the conference. And then number 5, strength of victory in all games. 6 is strength of schedule in all games. So that's the list.
Yeah, I mean, again, trying to act this stuff out is too tough live, and I'm not smart enough to put it all together. If Baltimore won both of their final 2 divisional games against the Bengals and Steelers, they're 4-2 in the division. If Pittsburgh, of course, loses to Baltimore in that scenario and then beats Cleveland, they're 4-2 in the division. And so then you go back to the common games I mentioned earlier about, week 18, what tiebreakers look like and all that jazz. So still, I think
obviously the Cleveland game is before the final Baltimore game, so you would have an idea going into that anyway.
Yeah, but to the reader's point, that
Right.
Ravens-Bengals game means a ton because if Baltimore loses that one, they are now 2-3 in the division. And if Pittsburgh can just beat Cleveland, even if they lose to Baltimore, they will still have division tiebreaker because they'll be no worse than 4-2, and Pittsburgh and Baltimore no better than 3-3. And so that would be obviously really big over tiebreaker because obviously Pittsburgh cannot lose the head-to-head matchup against Baltimore. If they at worst split the series. And if Baltimore loses and Pittsburgh beats Cleveland, then they've won the division tiebreaker as well. And so it really would take a lot for Baltimore to have to be able to win a tiebreaker. They basically would have to have a better record than Pittsburgh to actually win the division.
All right. What did they do differently this week to get DK going? Well, as we mentioned during the show, there was a lot of, and as DK said after the show, not a lot of coverage over the top on him, a lot of middle of the field safety type situations, and Aaron threw it to him. Then you had the extended play situation by Aaron on one of those, which got DK free. Another one, it was the play right after the first deep pass. They went the other way on an out route to DK over there as well too. So there was the onus of trying to get DK involved early in this game, and he responded for sure.
I got my pom-poms out, Dave. The old cheer. Be aggressive. Be aggressive. Pittsburgh was. They got Metcalf downfield, and it gave you, take the chance. Let him go make some plays. He did.
All right, bonus question. How will they run the ball if Darnell misses a game? That's another aspect of this game that we didn't see. We saw Spencer Anderson kind of take on that quasi, even more of that in motion split zone. We saw them try to utilize Spencer Anderson a little bit more.
Yeah, you had to kind of wear the Darnell hat in this one. I mean, obviously going to be a hindrance because Washington is such a good inline blocker, and you face some of these 4-3 teams. When you face the, who's it going to be? I'm not sure Miami's front, but, when you face Cleveland, later this year, trying to run on some of these 4-3 even fronts, it's where Washington really plays a role. So, yeah, it's going to be, then obviously I think I would expect Washington to come back by the concussion, from the concussion by then. But, yeah, it's certainly going to be a lot harder. I don't think that's the reason why Pittsburgh struggled to run against Baltimore. I think they're going to struggle no matter what against the Ravens. But it's certainly not easier if Big Darnell's out.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And he was looking woozy on that hit. He was looking rough.
All right, Jonathan Ammerman writes in, the win was great, but I'm still upset, confused about not dressing Roman Wilson. He's been getting open, and minus the fumble earlier in the season, he has done well whenever his name has been called. He's one of the only guys getting open on pure route running, and I genuinely believe he'd be putting up good numbers in another offense. What on earth is this team doing in giving guys like Scotty Miller and MVS a hat over him? To me, it's another progress stopper move. Bill Parcells was big on this. The short-sighted nature of letting someone with a lower ceiling start today and not give the person with the higher ceiling the chance to develop is infuriating. He says the team won, but I cannot imagine it was because of this move. MVS and Thielen did nothing of note that Roman wouldn't have done. He also has been solid on special teams. Why take reps away from a young player who has flashed and you drafted higher? It's not like he's dropped the ball, ruined his chances, etc. In his young career, he's made plays and provided an impact with the very few chances he's getting. Okay, now Jonathan, we went back and said the main reason at the top of the show, Mike Tomlin wanted veteran guys out there with the road getting narrowed. I do wonder how much Aaron Rodgers was pushing. And look, you could still have Thielen and MVS, and the whole Scotty Miller thing comes into question there, right? But it boils down to they wanted more experience moving forward. I think you're shining up. I think Alex did a great job with the film room this past week and all like that. I think we're overselling Roman a little bit so far this season. I understand people being shocked by the decision. Is this really a progress stopper move in totality when it comes to Roman Wilson?
I mean, it's not helping his progress by
Right.
sitting. I just don't know the process. I mean, I think the overall point was Pittsburgh wanted their veteran guys out there. They wanted to truly shake up the depth chart, which I'm not opposed to in principle, to get some different results. You got to play some different people and do some different things. Maybe this is a 1 week thing, or Roman gets the hat next week, and it's
Maybe
Roman.
Maybe Roman didn't have a great week of practice, although most of the team seemingly had a great week of practice, right?
Yeah, I mean, you never know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. That's certainly possible. So, we'll kind of keep watching it, but I think he's been putting on good tape, and it is frustrating when a guy's putting on good tape and the balls are simply not coming his way. I think anyone who watches that tape can understand that. For him not to dress feel like he's being punished for being productive and winning his routes. Maybe there's attention to detail and focus, and they wanted the vets out there. Rodgers spoke to that post game, so we'll see what it looks like for the Dolphins game and beyond. But I hope this is just kind of a 1 week blip, and that Wilson gets the hat again for the Dolphins game, because Miller does not really play on special teams. Like, he does not play more on teams than Roman Wilson does. So that's not the reason why Miller was getting the hat.
I'd rather have Wilson out there if I'm forced into special team situations than I would Scotty Miller, period.
Yeah, and Roman's been kind of the first guy as a gunner before, over Miller before, in those moments where it has occurred. So neither are core guys. They play,
Right.
They don't start on any unit on special teams. They're backups that come in if there's injury or rotations, and they're really just kind of as a gunner, maybe emergency returner. But it's not. People were asking, is Miller playing on teams? Is that why he's getting the nod? No. I mean, he played how many special team snaps yesterday, if any? What's the snap count that you had posted? Let me find it here. 1 snap on special teams and 3 on offense for Scotty Miller yesterday.
All right. Caleb Zaborski writes in, good morning, guys. I assume no gloom, despair, and agony. A hard-fought victory for the boys. He says Queen, DK, and Rodgers were men on missions today, but I don't want to praise them too much. I want to ask you guys, do you think Aaron had conversations with Mike T and Arthur Smith about taking more shots downfield? To me, it seemed to be more of an effort to do so. Also, do you think Wilson being inactive was justified? He's been, we just addressed the whole Roman Wilson thing, so we won't go back to that. I think this was just a collective effort of this team wanting to be more aggressive through the air and right from the start as well, too, especially that they got the coverage that they liked first play of the game there. I don't think this was solely Aaron Rodgers. This team knows, Arthur Smith has said, I mean, they all know that they've lacked the down the field element to the passing game. They knew that something had to change there. I don't think this was merely Aaron saying, we got to take more shots down the field. I think this was a collective. We got to take more shots down the field. We got to move the football. We got to have these chalk plays through the air.
Yeah, there's no secret how invisible the downfield passing game was. So I think it's probably a collective approach of how do we find that, and let's kind of change things up and get the vets out there and elevate MVS and get Thielen on the field and get his feet wet. So yeah, I think it was a collective of like, we need to go do some different things out there to get some different results.
Bryce writes in, hey guys, but as Thomas says, we need a stack of wins to get the stench off that Buffalo loss. While Pittsburgh has showed times they can run the ball, overall, Alex has been proven correct. The offense is smaller and more athletic and finesse. So moving forward, the Steelers need to lean more into yesterday's game plan, pass to set up the run, play more spread football, even with Darnell on the field, go a little more up tempo, bench Jonnu for Roman to get more speed on the field and run into lighter boxes. And he says, what do you guys predict the Steelers' record will be over the next 4 games? Here's the thing. You would expect, if they're going to continue to try to push the football down the field, and get these teams to start trying to to get more split safety looks and all. You would hope that they were, regardless of whether you're running out of 12 or 13 and all like that. The run game's got to be better than it was against the Ravens. Period. No matter what personnel you have on the field. The last commenter said about how much they would miss Darnell Washington. They would miss Darnell Washington if they don't have him when it comes to the running game, without a doubt. There. So I guess his point is should they be? Look, we all have been wanting them to push the football down the field, but you just don't throw the football down the field deep just to throw the football down the field. Now, there have been instances we have felt where there's been situations where they're not even trying to throw the football down the field. So they need to take a lot of what they did in this game and build upon it, especially if it's not just the deep shots down outside the numbers there. And there were, you got to see some Aaron Rodgers extended plays, and that played into this as well too. So we just need to we need to see this offense continue to make strides in some things that they haven't done. They've been so reliant on getting the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands quickly. That obviously wasn't the case against Baltimore. Second, they've been so reliant on yards after the catch. That obviously wasn't the case on Sunday against the Ravens. We saw more pass attempts even under 20 yards down the field, but past 5 yards past the line of scrimmage in this game against the Ravens. Some complete, some incomplete. So you need to lean more into hopefully what you did in this game against the Ravens. But then again, I hate to go back to the point. This pass rush of the Ravens might be the weakest that this team faces the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know where to take all that. One thing I do want to note from this game, I should have mentioned earlier, was the offense getting, even if it was just a field goal of 3 points to start the second half. Pittsburgh's been a really bad double dip team or start of the third quarter team, and not a good second half team in general this year, but especially third quarter, that opening possession. And so to get the ball at the half and 8-play drive, 50 yards, kick a field goal, go up two scores, 20-9 was important in this one. So I'm not entirely sure what the original question even was about personality and should they go more spread and pass to set up the run. This run game would still be successful. I think Baltimore's always tough sledding. I wasn't expecting much yesterday, especially after Washington went down. So yeah, I mean, different ways to skin a cat, but this run game still has to be important and be an asset to this team. I think it can be. It often has been, especially in recent weeks. It's been there. So I think you just keep plugging away at it.
Here's the common thing that we got to see going forward. We got to see them can be able to push the football down the field through the air with success, period.
Yes, no question.
All right, Todd Gensler writes in, this team goes how Aaron goes. He gets ridiculed often for calling out players, but he also holds himself accountable. The fact that there are players who are undisciplined, have lack of focus, and miss meetings is obviously a problem, and it shouldn't be Rodgers' responsibility to call them out. It starts with Tomlin. I can see why Thielen and MVS saw action. They focus on the details. Do we know? I mean, even Metcalf said something. Him and Aaron meet, right? I mean, can we sit here and say players loosely say miss meetings?
Yeah, I still think from those comments, it's hard to really say that that's the comment that Rodgers was making. So I'm not gonna take it that way. But I think the point about having the veteran receivers out there, certainly is salient and makes some sense to kind of get dialed in and focused and be on the P's and Q's and have this offense feel more cohesive and more fluid.
And look, he says this team goes how Aaron goes. Well, I mean, we saw prime good. I mean, once again, that was Aaron's best game of the season, right? So need more of Aaron playing the way Aaron played on Sunday against the Ravens.
Yeah, like I said last week, Rodgers took some heat for kind of calling guys out, but that's who he's been his whole career,
Right.
His whole time in Pittsburgh. When they were winning, he was still saying the same thing. So it's the same guy, win and loss. I mean, that's what you're signing up for when you sign the guy in the first place. You're going to get very honest answers, post game. And when they win, it gets celebrated. When they lose, it gets critiqued for Rodgers being, being a jerk, but we know it's a results-oriented business, the lens in which the media so often discusses these things like post-game comments is viewed through the prism of did you win or did you lose? And, when Rodgers wins, he gets praised for it. But again, I've had the same answer. I generally have no problem with it. He's the same dude. You know exactly who you're going to get. And as long as you know, like for players and coaches, as long as you know the type of player that you're going to get, like, you can work with that because you know the type of guy he's going to be. When you're unpredictable and you're haphazard and you're not even keeled or kind of, you are as expected, then that's harder to, I think, coach and manage and work with. But whenever, like, that's the type of dude you are, you can certainly work with that. And again, I think Rodgers played a heck of a game. He's been even keeled and steady and had a level of calm, not only in this game, but to the team last week after the loss, throughout this week of like, let's pull through. We're gonna make it. And you need those kind of dudes in those moments where it's easy to get tight and panic. You're a young guy, you're a young receiver, young offensive lineman, you're kind of worried about this season. You need a guy to kind of rein you back in and calm you down, refocus you, because all you can do is just go out there and play the next play, play the next game, and Pittsburgh did. So that's a big-time gut check and big-time win.
Todd has a perfect ending to his email here. Good win, still sporadic, move onward. Maybe that should be the tagline of our podcast.
There you go. I like it. I like it, Todd.
All right, quick thoughts. Chiefs on life support.
Yeah, I mean, their offense looks completely cooked. And, even if they start turning it around, there just might not be a runway to do so. They've lost the West. They're officially eliminated from the AFC West. The wild card's competitive. So the Chiefs' dynasty appears over.
All right, Indianapolis Colts and Daniel Jones' Achilles. That ruins them for the season, right?
Yep. They are barbecue chicken at this point. Super unfortunate for Daniel Jones. But, Riley Leonard's not going to lead them to the promised land. So this AFC, Dave, it's wide open. Who is your favorite in the AFC? I mean, the Patriots are going to probably give their favorites the Bills, but this thing is there for the taking for anyone.
Yeah, I had Buffalo going to the big dance. I still think they've got it, especially if they're able to play at home and all that snow and all like that. That Houston defense, you got to talk. You can't have conversations about potential playoff teams with Houston. We'll get to see the Chargers tonight and see how banged up Herbert is. And see what the Chargers are made of. And look, I mean, you could be facing a scenario where Baltimore and Kansas City are not in the playoffs this year, and the Steelers are, and Denver. The good defense. What are you going to get on a weekly basis with their offense? New England's tough with Drake May, what they're doing offensively and occasionally on defense there. They're going to be a tough out. Jacksonville is a very wishy-washy team, it feels like. Buffalo can beat anybody and lose to anybody, it feels like. Yeah, it's wide open, it feels like.
Yeah, and could Pittsburgh be there for the taking? It's hard to see them as one of the top favorites, obviously, but you get a home game in the wildcard game if you win the division, and you go from there. And there's a good chance, Dave, if Pittsburgh does win the division, you're taking on the Bills at Acrisure come wildcard weekend.
Absolutely. Get a rematch. All right. We kept this under 2 hours, amazingly. So let's see. The Steelers have an open locker room on Monday for 45 minutes. The team is off on Tuesday and Wednesday, although there will be a Mike Tomlin Tuesday press conference. The team will practice Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So the first injury report will be out Thursday. When we come back on Wednesday, we'll recap Mike Tomlin, recap the injury situation. We'll go over the all 22 from the game against the Ravens and anything else that stuck out from there. And that's the plan. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. The show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. Make sure to get a username and password and hit the login button to take advantage of that. Whew. Great show. A lot to get to today. Enjoyed it, Alex. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.